Welcome to Life Stories, where the most powerful moments often begin in silence. What would you do if you came home early and found your child alone, exhausted, and scrubbing the kitchen floor as punishment, while the rest of the family was out having fun without her? This isn't a story about spilled juice or forgotten toys. It's about the quiet ways some people decide who belongs and who doesn't, and what happens when a mother refuses to stay silent. A tale of betrayal wrapped in family ties, love tested by bloodlines, and one little girl's heartbreaking question: am I not enough because I'm not really theirs? Stay with us because by the end of this story, someone will lose everything, someone will find their voice, and one family will never be the same again. Let's begin. The scent of lemon cleaner hit me before I even stepped through the front door. I should have still been in Chicago, shaking hands with C-level clients and presenting data that could land my company a multi-million-dollar campaign. But the contract closed 2 days early, and I caught a red-eye home with one thought in mind. Surprise, Avery. My daughter. My heart. My reason. It was quiet. Too quiet. Our Boston townhouse, usually humming with some kind of life, cartoon jingles, snack wrappers, Avery's excited narration of her latest art project felt like a museum, sterile, still. I set my suitcase down and called out, "Avery?" No answer. I moved through the house with growing unease, each room empty, untouched, until a faint sound drew me to the kitchen. The scraping of bristles on tile, a wet sniffle, and then I saw her. Avery. My sweet, fiercely creative, only 8 years old daughter was on her knees, scrubbing the floor with a stiff, bristled brush nearly as long as her forearm. Her curls clung to her damp forehead. Her knees were raw, her hands pruned and red from the solution she was using. She didn't see me at first. She was too focused, like she'd been told not to stop. Avery? My voice cracked like dry wood. She startled. The brush slipped from her hands and clattered against the tile. She turned, eyes wide with fear, for a moment, not even recognizing me. Mommy? My knees hit the floor before I realized I'd moved. Baby, what are you doing? I spilled juice this morning, she whispered. Grandma Helen said I had to clean the whole kitchen before she and Grandpa got back. They took Emma to Six Flags. She said I needed to learn responsibility. Her voice faltered, breaking like glass. She said, I don't appreciate things like Emma does because I'm not their real granddaughter. The word real lodged itself like a shard of glass in my throat. I held her, her tiny body trembling in my arms as rage and guilt tangled in my chest. She was alone, left for hours, punished, made to scrub floors like a maid in her own home, because she wasn't biologically theirs, because she didn't have Carter blood. They had left my daughter behind. They had looked into her eyes and decided she was disposable. Avery was never supposed to be mine. She was my cousin's daughter, born from a love story that ended in the most tragic of crashes. I was only 24 when I adopted her, single, underqualified, but I was also the only one who stepped forward. And when Ryan proposed to me a year later, he knelt with 2 rings, one for me, one for Avery. We became a family, not by blood, but by a love that ran deeper than DNA. I stood up, lifting Avery gently. Her legs were unsteady. Come on, I said softly. Let's get you cleaned up. In the bathroom, as I washed her hands and pressed lotion into her raw skin, she flinched. I noticed the bruise on her shoulder, purple and fading into yellow. Where did you get this? I asked, keeping my tone casual. Grandma grabbed me when I dropped a plate yesterday, she said, eyes fixed on the faucet. She said I'm always clumsy, that I should be lucky anyone even wanted me. She said it like she believed it, like it wasn't the first time she'd heard it. That night, I sat on the edge of her bed while she clutched her stuffed animal, Mr. Waffles, his ears chewed and floppy. Avery had fallen asleep mid-sentence, her lashes damp. I stared at the ceiling, trying to breathe. I had left her with Helen and Gerald because we had no other option. Ryan's work emergency had sent him to New York. Our sitter was back at college. My mother was recovering from knee surgery in Oregon. And Helen had insisted, she's our granddaughter, Danielle. One little girl won't break us. But they never wanted her. They tolerated her. And the moment they had an excuse to exclude her, they took it. They gave Emma gifts, praise, outings, and they gave Avery silence, chores, cold remarks. This hadn't started 3 days ago. It had been building for years in quiet cruelty, too subtle to prove and too painful to confront. Until now. I walked into the hallway and called Ryan. He picked up on the second ring, his voice scratchy with exhaustion. Hey, babe, everything okay? No. I told him everything. The silence on the other end stretched for so long I thought the call had dropped. When he finally spoke, his voice shook with fury. They left her alone? Yes. And said she wasn't family? She told me she thinks we took her in because no one else wanted her. I'm getting on the next flight. I don't care what's going on at work. We're ending this. For good. We made a plan. I'd confront them when they returned. Calmly, clearly, and when Ryan got back, we'd make sure this never, ever happened again. At 5:47 p.m., I heard the sound of tires crunching on gravel. I opened the front door just as Helen stepped out of the car, laughing, shopping bags from Six Flags swinging in her hand. Gerald followed with Emma on his shoulders, all sun-kissed and sleepy. Danielle? Helen blinked, caught off guard. What are you doing home? Avery is upstairs, I said, my voice low. Resting. After scrubbing the kitchen floor for hours. Helen's smile faltered. Well, she made a mess. You left her, alone, for 4 hours, while you took Emma to a theme park. She needed to learn a lesson. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. She learned something today, but not the lesson you think. She learned that you don't love her the way you love Emma, that she's second class in your eyes, that she has to earn love. Gerald tried to step in. Now wait just a minute. No, I cut in. You both crossed a line, one you don't get to walk back over. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. Ryan's on speaker. He has something to say. His voice, calm but deadly serious, filled the entryway. You made my daughter feel like a guest in her own home. You left her bruised, neglected, and heartbroken. You are no longer welcome here. Pack your bags. Helen's mouth dropped open. Ryan, you're not serious. I've never been more serious in my life. What would you do if the people who claim to love your child hurt them the most? Have you ever had to choose between family peace and protecting someone innocent? Just as Helen's face twisted in disbelief, Avery appeared at the top of the stairs, and what she heard next would change everything. Avery stood at the top of the stairs, her eyes wide, bare feet clutching the wooden floor. Mr. Waffles dangled from one hand. Her gaze shifted from me to Helen and Gerald, then to the phone in my hand, where Ryan's voice had just declared they were no longer welcome. Helen's expression froze in a tight, brittle smile, as if she just remembered an audience was watching. Sweetheart, she called, voice syrupy. We were just talking about you. Come say hello. Avery didn't move. My heart clenched as I stepped into her line of sight. It's okay, baby, I said gently. You don't have to come down. Go back to your room. I'll be up soon. Her mouth opened like she wanted to speak, then closed again. She nodded and backed away, vanishing down the hallway. The silence that followed was deafening. Happy now? Helen hissed, her mask of civility finally slipping. You've turned her against us. No, I said, struggling to keep my hands steady. You did that when you treated her like a burden instead of a granddaughter. She's not our granddaughter. Helen snapped before she could stop herself. She's a charity case you dragged into this family and forced us to pretend with. Don't act like we're the monsters for finally being honest. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Ryan's breath caught audibly on the other end of the line. You just said that in front of my wife, he said slowly, and nearly in front of our daughter. I said what everyone's been thinking, Helen continued, voice trembling with righteousness. Emma is our blood. It's natural we'd feel closer to her, and maybe if Danielle hadn't pushed her career ahead of motherhood, maybe Avery wouldn't feel so needy all the time. That cut deeper than anything else had. I'd sacrifice sleep, promotions, peace of mind, all to create a life where Avery felt secure. But I hadn't been home. I hadn't seen the signs. And now, standing in my own foyer, I realized I was grieving something I couldn't name, an illusion of family that had never existed. Get your things, I said quietly. You have 15 minutes to leave this house. Gerald opened his mouth as if to protest, but Helen grabbed his arm and yanked him toward the stairs. I heard their bags being pulled from the guest room closet, the rattle of zippers and muttered curses. I hung up with Ryan. My fingers were ice. I went upstairs. Avery was sitting on her bed, curled up tight, Mr. Waffles clutched to her chest like a shield. Her eyes didn't leave the window. "Sweetheart," I said, sitting beside her, "I'm so sorry you heard that." "She meant it," she whispered, "about me not being their granddaughter." "She was wrong," I said. So wrong. But maybe she's right about me being too much. The words hit like a body blow. I turned to her, cupped her cheeks with both hands. "Avery Grace Carter, listen to me. There's nothing wrong with you. You are not too much. You are just right, exactly as you are." She blinked up at me. "Then why didn't they want me?" And there it was, the question no child should ever have to ask. Because their love had been conditional. Because their version of family had walls and bloodlines and rules she'd never agreed to. I didn't have an answer that would undo what they'd said. But I had something else. "I don't know why they couldn't see how special you are," I said. "But I do. Your dad does. And nothing they say or do can ever change that." She nodded slowly, then whispered, "I want Daddy to come home. He's on his way." We lay there for a while, wrapped in the quiet ache of what had just happened, and that's when I saw it on her nightstand beneath her coloring book, a folded note. "Can I see this?" I asked. She shrugged. I opened it carefully. It was written in messy, careful handwriting. "Dear Mommy and Daddy, I'm sorry I'm not real family. I'll try harder to be better. Please don't send me back. I promise I'll be good." The floor tilted under me. "Avery," I said, choking on her name, "when did you write this?" "The first night," she said. "After they told me I couldn't eat dessert because I didn't earn it like Emma. I thought maybe I wasn't enough." I couldn't breathe. I folded the note back up, pressed it to my chest, and willed myself not to break in front of her. They hadn't just neglected her. They had made her question her very worth. They had planted shame and called it discipline, and I had let them through the door. I stood, crossed to the dresser, and pulled out a small photo album, Avery's family book. I turned to the first page, a photo of us on the day the judge finalized her adoption, my arms wrapped around her, Ryan lifting her high into the air. "This is real," I told her. "This moment, this love, this family, it's as real as it gets." She traced the edge of the photo with her finger. "Do you think Grandma Helen ever loved me?" I swallowed. "I think she doesn't understand what love really means. Not yet. But that's her failure, not yours." That night I didn't leave her room. I held her hand until she fell asleep, the folded note tucked inside my nightstand drawer, a reminder of what silence costs. Have you ever discovered someone you trusted saw your child as less than? What would you do if the people closest to you crossed an unforgivable line? The next morning, Ryan arrived, and what he brought with him would change everything we thought we knew about Helen, Gerald, and the secrets they had kept buried for years. Ryan arrived just after dawn, his suitcase still in the trunk, his eyes bloodshot from the overnight flight. He didn't say anything as he crossed the threshold. He just pulled Avery into his arms and held her like a man trying to undo the last 4 days with sheer force of love. She buried her face in his shoulder, her fingers clenching the fabric of his shirt. Neither of them spoke for a long time. And I think in that silence, something unspoken passed between them, something I couldn't give her on my own. The wordless reassurance that she was safe now, that someone else saw her, wholly and without condition. Once Avery was settled in the living room with a blanket and a quiet movie, Ryan took my hand and led me into the kitchen. He dropped a folded piece of paper onto the counter. "This was in my parents' house," he said, "tucked inside a drawer in Dad's study. I stopped there on my way from the airport. I don't even know what made me look." I unfolded it and read in silence. It was a letter dated 2 years ago, addressed to Ryan. "Ryan, I'm sorry for the way Helen talks about Avery. I don't agree with it, but after 50 years of marriage, I've learned it's easier to be quiet than to confront her. That doesn't mean I'm proud of it. I've seen the way you love that little girl, and I've seen how much it hurts her when Helen pretends she isn't really ours. If anything ever happens to me, I hope you'll find this, and I hope you'll forgive me for not being brave enough when it counted." "Dad," I set the letter down carefully, my hands shaking. "Gerald had written this 2 years ago. meaning he had known, and he had done nothing. Ryan ran a hand through his hair. He never gave it to me, just hid it, like a confession without consequences. My stomach turned. So he did know and chose silence. Ryan's jaw tightened, and now we know why Avery felt like this wasn't the first time. We didn't tell her about the letter. Some truths don't mend anything, they just reopen wounds. Instead, we poured our energy into rebuilding, into therapy, into Sunday mornings at the farmer's market, into family movie nights where she got to choose even the weirdest animated musicals, and I learned the hard way what slime was made of. I started saying no more at work, more firm boundaries, fewer last minute trips, and Ryan, to his credit, did the same. Helen and Gerald stayed away. At first because we told them to, and later because even they seemed to understand there was nothing left to say. They sent a few gifts: books, a sweater, a dollhouse too expensive for what it symbolized. We didn't give them to Avery, we donated them instead. Months passed. Avery started laughing again, and not the polite kind. The real kind, shoulders shaking, eyes crinkling, can't catch her breath kind. She started drawing family portraits again, and this time the three of us were always holding hands. And then, almost a year after that terrible weekend, we received a call from a hospice nurse in upstate New York. Gerald was dying. Pancreatic cancer, advanced. Weeks, maybe days. He'd asked to see Avery. I looked at Ryan across the dinner table that night, our plates untouched. What do we do? He didn't answer right away, just stared at the napkin he kept folding and unfolding. I hated him for what he didn't do, he said. But he tried. In his own cowardly, quiet way. I don't think Avery owes him anything. But maybe he owes her the truth. We talked to Dr. Patel, our therapist. Then we talked to Avery. She was quiet, thoughtful, older than her 9 years. I don't know if I want to see him, she said, but I think I might need to. So we went. The hospice smelled like lavender and antiseptic. Gerald looked smaller than I remembered, the force of his presence drained from his body but lingering in the shadows under his eyes. When Avery stepped into the room, he smiled weakly. You got tall, he said. She didn't speak at first, just looked at him, waiting. I should have protected you, he said, voice raspy. And I didn't. I let her talk that way. I let her be that way. I didn't stop it. I thought silence was safer, but it just made me a coward. Avery's hands twisted in her lap. Then she asked, why didn't you ever say sorry when you were still strong enough to mean it? Gerald blinked, then nodded, as if accepting a verdict he already knew was coming. I don't know, he said, but I am sorry now, for all of it. Avery nodded, then did something that surprised even me. She stood, walked over, and placed Mr. Waffles, her old, faded stuffed bunny, gently on the table beside his bed. You can borrow him, she said, if you get scared. Then she turned and walked out. She didn't cry until we reached the car, and when she did, Ryan just held her and whispered, you were braver than all of us. Gerald passed away 3 days later. Helen didn't attend the private family service. She sent flowers, lilies, the kind Avery is allergic to. We never heard from her again. But that's not the end of the story. Because the ending isn't what happens to us, it's what we choose to carry forward. And Avery, she chose to carry light. She chose forgiveness, but not forgetfulness. She chose truth, but not bitterness. And one day, as we stood in the school auditorium watching her receive a creative writing award, she read a line from her short story aloud to the crowd. Family isn't the people who share your blood. It's the ones who see your bruises and choose to stay anyway. The applause was thunderous. And in that moment, I didn't think about what we'd lost. I thought about what we had rebuilt, honestly, imperfectly, and together. What part of Avery's story touched your heart the most, and why? Comment 100 if this story moved you. Tell us, what country are you watching from? Share this video with someone who believes in the power of chosen family. Thank you for watching Life Stories.